all tied up, and this first set is dead even.
Unbelievable combination.
Wow.
Beautifully done.
What a great spot. Good morning and welcome to the 2025-26 APTA Tour. We're live from the Huntington Country Club in Huntington, New York, bringing you the 2025 Long Island and Duane Hayden Invitationals, with live streaming brought to you by the APTA membership and our tour presenting sponsor, Corient. Tournament support has also been provided by the following local sponsors: the Long Island Platform Tennis Association and Master Athletics. I'm Patty Hogan, along with Lauren Mandel, bringing you the women's final between our tournament number one seeded team of Macy Elliott and Lisa Lalic up against the completely unknowns until last night. Not really, I'm only kidding. Michelle Ncube and Sophia Sedovich. Our umpire for the match is Carol Everton. Lauren, have you ever seen a draw play out in women's paddle like yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, look, that's what we're always looking for. We're like little uncertainty and some upsets, and we certainly got that yesterday, Patty.
Lauren, I am shocked at when I looked at some of the results from yesterday and seeing names of Delmonico Gio go out early, Allison Morgan, Marie Maturka go out early. That bodes well for the game of women's paddle and some of the depth that's kind of emerging in the sport. And here with, Michelle Ncube, splashed on the scene. She, last year playing with, she played an early tournament with her buddy Lynn Burris. But, Sophia Sedovich, there she is. She's from Canubra Country Club. She's one of the Drew Broderick's assistant pros. Wonderful young woman and a great player. And she's just kind of like emerging as a paddle player here. They're up against our tournament number one, seed, Macy Elliott out of Rolling Hills Country Club, and Lisa Lalic out of Essex Hunt Club in Maidstone. And, since we don't bet on any sports, we can't bet on this, but Elliott, Lalic, overwhelming favorites, going into this final match, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, look, the sport has in the women's game, we have three teams that have really set themselves apart from everyone else. One of them is Elliott and Lalic. One is Taya Page and B. Lopez. And one is Flor Hanish and Anna Zabori, who played their first tournament last week and won it in well, they didn't actually. They had a default in the finals, I should sorry to say, to Elliott and Lalic, but they look great. So they're the class of the draw right now, and everybody is trying to catch up. And the good news is, as you said, there are a lot of teams that are looking to make an impression. Now, look who's up in the chair for this holiday December match. Look at our umpire. I don't know if there's any way that we're going to have to get a picture of that later. But Carol, I don't know if you saw the green pants. Did you notice that, Lauren? No.
Evan, we could pull down. Evan, our producer, Evan Morgan, does a great job. Thank you. We could pull down that and we could look at all the ladies. It's a good shot. We see who's climbing down the ladder right now. Mike Yahimski, who runs all the umpires for APTA. Jackie Cameron, one of our tour directors, does a phenomenal job. Great lady. And I think this is a fun time. Let's talk about the longest running team in women's paddle. Lauren, name the team.
Well, it's got to be Bobo and Tonya.
They started playing. Bobo and Tonya, Bobo Delaney, longtime pro, Tonya Mangan, married to Tim Mangan, who runs this tournament. We'll talk about Tim a little while later. But Bobo and Tonya became sisters-in-law, and they started playing in nationals on the tour in '91. What a successful, great team. They had a season where they held the number one ranking, having won the Long Island event, Short Hills event, and a Philly event. I think it was in the same season. My spot check fact finder wasn't positive about that. Bobo and Tonya were a great team. They made it to two semis of nationals together. They won 40 nationals twice in 2001 and 2005. They won the 50s in 2010. And the wonderful thing about, Bobo and Tonya is they epitomize, they're out here because they became great friends when they became sisters-in-law, and they love playing with each other. And it's a big testament to them and their loyalty to each other that, they keep pursuing and they come to these tournaments to be a part of it. And then the other great thing is, this is a sport that keeps giving generationally. Boba's daughter won 5 junior nationals with Cindy Ross's daughter, Nikki Ross, and they had a stretch where, because of Boba's leadership, we ended up with national champions. And Tonya and Tim's daughter, Caroline, is in this draw. She's a coach of lacrosse at Fairfield and teaches tennis in the summers at Nassau Country Club. Great young woman, and she's talented, and she played in this draw. And you have Jack Mangan, who's playing with Steve Salerno. They've gotten themselves to about around top 25 or 30 in the country. So it's definitely the sport out here on Long Island, Lauren, that, it's generational, and that's how paddle used to be until the influx of a lot of our foreign-born players who came through the college system. And that's why we have wonderful women from all countries around the world representing our sport. Even in
just look at the flags on this court, right? We have 4 different flags. We have one American and Macy Elliott, and then we have for those of you who aren't quite sure about all your international flags, we have Zimbabwe, Ukraine, and Russia. And like you said, that's really an exciting thing about our sport is all these women and men come over to play college tennis, and they stay, and the sport is the richer for it.
Yeah. And Lauren, we got to get some representation from the other side. 2 people who are watching this intensely, including the warm-up, are Macy's parents. Kathy and Rick are out there watching. And talk about nervous parents. Evidently, Kathy has a ball that when Macy misses, she kicks the ball across the living room rug when they're watching. And I don't know, there's a video on the APTA site that Kathy and Rick are on it. I saw it the other day to refresh my memory on it. And, we're thrilled that the World Wide Web exists for Rick to watch his daughter play paddle. And, Lauren, I don't think I told you this morning, but Macy, not only playing this tournament today, had an event she went back and ran out of Rolling Hills Country Club last night for her members. And then 2 o'clock this afternoon, she's running an APTA Junior Tour event. And those are 2 good reasons why she unfortunately can't go to Drew Elliott's wedding today. Macy's cousin's getting married. And that's why Kathy and Rick are watching this in a hotel room. And all eyes on this match. It's going to be fascinating.
Wow, I'm exhausted just listening to that.
Well, it was a snow day yesterday, so we got a lot of background intel. Now, on this match, give me your prediction, Lauren.
Well, honestly, anytime Elliott and Lalic walk on the court, I think the match is in their hands. I mean, you're not going to see a bigger ball striker than Lalic. She tags the ball off both sides. Particularly her backhand, and you know what? But you know what I really like that she does is she closes the net off really well. And as you can see, she's very tall, and has a very wide wingspan. So she's hard to get the ball by at net. And so, really, in my opinion, it's Ncube and can they stay with Elliott and Lalic, and can they make them make some errors, because that's what they're going to need to do.
So. This is Macy Elliott on the far side, about to serve. That's Leela Lalic standing up at the net with the pink vest, about to hit the return. Out of that deuce court is Michelle Ncube, and out of the out court getting ready, Sofia Sedovich. Those of you who haven't seen Sedovich, she's got a lot of natural talent. You can see she prefers her backhand, lines that up, so she can hit a backhand return a serve all the time. I think the key, Lauren, they've got to play long points, and right there, that tells me a lot. Sofia is ready, because she had that short ball. She had a lot of places to put that ball and just put it in play down the middle. I love the conservative driving toward the middle early going in matches, especially when you're a big underdog. And you can see right there on that forehand, she took it down the line, and I love that mentality. I don't love it on overheads at all, as we are both fans of blue is good, green is not good. Right. And you start off in matches and, hit your highest percentage shots.
And interestingly, you know, as we often say on these broadcasts, Macy Elliott has 2 serves. She has this push serve that she gets into the net behind it quickly, and she has a much bigger spin serve. But she's elected to start off with the softer serve.
Right, and she's added a 3rd serve this week, Lauren. I did get a lot of intel. You can see on that serve, you know, like when she does her push serve, it's literally out in front like a pancake push.
Yep.
Where that one had a little bit of, it's kind of a hybrid serve, where it's something in between, just trying to grab a little bit of slice, because we know when you hit the ball with slice, that ball will stay low bouncing. And we know with the ground strokes that all these women possess,
Yeah.
you leave a ball in the court that's a high bouncing ball, and players will hit down at you.
And, you know, also what we've seen this season is a few more lefties in our game, which has been a rarity for whatever reason. Ncube lefty, so they have to make sure to communicate well in the middle, though earlier in that point they both went for the same overhead. But, you know, they played a pretty good game there, and I think they're going to, Ncube and Sedovich are gonna make Elliott and Lalic earn this.
Yeah, I think, you know, like the lob long that Ncube missed in that game, little things like that are going to make a difference. You know what I mean? And I think a lob long is something that happens a lot when I see players playing against Lalic, because she's 6 feet tall, and there's a natural tendency to try to go too high and they go too far out. I think the key is that you lob a Lalic and you just get her to the service line, because she can't hurt you from back there. That's the key.
That's always the key, right? No matter how tall the player is to get them out of the service box with a lob.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so right there, that's going to be one of the keys in this match. You saw Sedovich was a little slow getting over to cover that middle. She was probably a big step away from covering it. And I think Lalic, I think she's the best ball striker on the women's tour currently, Lauren. I don't think you would disagree. She reminds me of the first time I ever saw you hit a paddle ball, Lauren. And you were a pure ball striker, forehand or backhand. You made solid contact. Every time you were about to hit a ball, I knew that ball was going to be coming my way, you know, purely stricken. And I remember seeing Lalic, and I was like, I remember seeing heavy ground strokes, and you were one of the people who hit those heavy ground strokes. And so I think when you play against someone like that, you make people have to really be in a very good volley position. They've got to be, you know, on top of the net, and they've got to seal off the middle of the court. Because you can see Lalic can go full power up the middle, off speed wide. She moves her ball, her drive, like no one I've seen currently in the game right now this season.
Yeah, that was a nice off-speed return.
Yeah, and that was one of the things Macy Elliott was talking about. And I said, you know, what's been surprising about playing a couple tournaments with Lisa? And she said, just, you know, she can spot those drives at any mile per hour, and it doesn't matter what the score is. Meaning, she's kind of got that inner real competitive thing where the score doesn't phase her. So I think, you know, Sedovich and Ncube, lefty-righty, there's always that little vulnerable natural spot in the middle of the court. That's why I think it's going to have to be, they're going to have to be a really good shifting team to be competitive in this match.
Elliott and Lalic.
And that point was a good example, right? I mean, Ncube and Sedovich were in control the whole point. They had Elliott on the ropes, and one mistake, one bad overhead, and the point was over in the other direction. They got to be really, really precise.
And so, Lauren, when you're, you know, here you are, Ncube and Sedovich. What would you tell them about this? So Ncube just slipped. So it is a loss of point. They might give her a do-over.
Are you sure you're okay? Yeah.
I mean, they're checking to make sure she's cool.
I think they are on.
They can't really technically give her a do-over. Not with Santa Claus up in the chair. Is that the Grinch up in the chair? Or an elf?
30 love.
That's Lalic serving. Macy Elliott with her back to us at the net. The team in pink, that's Ncube, just missing that return in the net, and Sophia Sedovich about to hit the return out of the ad court. These next two games.
Elliott and Lalic. Elliott and Lalic lead the first set. 3 games to love.
I'm just thinking, like, right now, obviously they need a game to get on the board here. They're down 3-love in the first set. But I was just thinking, these two games, we're going to see what they're made of right now. And their games, Sedovich and Ncube are outstanding young women players in the game.
Yeah.
If they were to get out there and play, obviously they made it to the finals here. You have this draw of 32. They're taking out, you know, a lot of the other teams. They're so good. But just, you know, here we have Elliott, Rick and Kathy's daughter, 4 national titles already in her young career. And Lisa Lalic, just world-class, you know, tennis player, paddle player. It's a huge, it's a mismatch for sure. But Ncube and Sedovich, you know, right now they just have to be thinking 1 point at a time. But they've got to go back to like the basics, watch the ball, and play each point, and then like just keep the ball in play. And I think their mindset of, you know, what are their winners that are going to be available in this match? There's going to be few and far between, because Lalic and Elliott, when they're up at the net, they are a difficult team to break down because of their height and their skill. But
I think that's what's getting them into trouble, right? They play a, they set the point up, and then they think they're gonna, you know, take advantage, and they get stuffed by a better volley, or you know, the points are where they were. Look, like you said, they had a couple really good wins in this tournament. You know, in the semis they beat Curtis and Petrini, who are 2 excellent players, but they're just not winning points on shots that they've won them earlier in the tournament, and the point goes on, and that's a little scary when that happens.
right.
You can't figure out where your points are coming from.
But you have to just stay in the moment,
Yeah.
being like, okay, what's the safest place on the court here for them? You know, and I think because they're lefty and righty, they can decide who they want to handle them, you know, the bulk of the overheads. And, you know, I'm guessing it has to go toward our 4-time national champ, Macy Elliott, in that deuce court. She does, you know, she brings awesome firepower. But like we said, you know, that ball coming off the paddle of Lalic, you know, is Macy Elliott's drives, you know, on steroids. It's so much heavier. It just pounds you with pace. And if you're not in ideal position with your knees bent, you know, paddle firm, you're going to make errors.
15-0.
Lalic likes that 2-handed backhand as well, doesn't she, Lauren, on the return of serve?
Does.
See how she
does.
favors it?
And she moves it around nicely.
And see right there.
Yeah, it's not a safe overhead, right?
Right, yeah, that was...
Oh, okay.
You know, she jumped that ball, but my point is only her reaction to the Lalic forehand. It was coming her way, and she just stood there. She's got to commit to a backhand volley and slide over, shut down the middle of the court a little bit. Make Lalic beat her wide, I'm saying, in that situation, not middle or at her body. And that's where not committing to the backhand volley is hurtful against the best drivers in the game. I think a lot of times it doesn't matter, and wherever you are, you can reach for a ball, but once they get the shorter ball, you've got to form that wall up at the net, close in, and flipping your paddle between a forehand and a backhand. You know, you have such a limited amount of time to pull it off against players like Elliott and Lalic. See, I love what Ncube did right there. She bent her knee and just absorbed the pace, stayed down. And we know, you know, I always say a good volley goes in, A really good volley goes in, stays low, and a great volley
30.
goes deep.
And that was a good example of how they have to win a point. They're going to have to absorb the pace. They're going to have to, you know, place their overheads perfectly, and then they'll win a point.
And see, what a rip. You see how Lalic just moved that thing over a little bit. Ncube had done a great job staying on her backhand and handled that other one beautifully. And then boom, Lalic forced her to flip her paddle over, and it's just hard to have the time to pull that off.
Advantage, Elliott, Lalic.
And see right there when you're Sedovich, you know, you look up and you're cross court, the person who's handling the overheads, you know, there's just the height of Lalic standing there, and you know it's Macy Elliott. My point is, there's just a tendency to try to be too good. These guys just can't miss. They just have to lose this match because they get carved up in the screens versus lobbing long. You know what I mean? And missing drives. Does that make sense?
And they can't switch. They can't switch on that ball because Lalic had too much time. It wasn't the right ball to switch on. All right. Well, they had a chance to win a game there.
Love, 15.
And this is where you want them to be aggressive, right off the ground strokes. It's probably their only chance to get an easy ball from Elliott and
Right.
Lalic.
Love, 30.
Okay, good move. Good return. Good move by Sedovich.
Yep. A little bit of a shorter serve from Elliott there, so it got pounced. That was kind of a combination serve. I like that one that Elliott just hit big time.
40.
Like a slow slice type of slider serve a little bit.
Hey, just like that, they're on the board, Patty.
Awesome.
Corient is the official wealth sponsor of the APTA's 2025-26 season. Corient is a fee-only wealth manager who puts their clients at the center of everything they do. Learn more at corient.com.
You know, we talk about Macy and her serve, and she tinkers, and she's always the tinkerer. And, you know, you think someone who's won nationals 4 times, you know, okay, she's got a great game. Well, she does have a great game, but she wants to make it greater. And that's the thing. Top-level players, they're just going to continue to add shots to their arsenal.
And I think you have to. I think you have to because, you know, I mean, there are other top players out there doing the same thing, and nobody wants to be left behind.
Lauren, kudos to Tim Mangan and his team running this event. Tim's been running this event since sometime in the late 1800s, before the sport was even created. No, I'm only kidding. Tim is a great pro. He's been out at Nassau Country Club for almost 50 years, a phenomenal leader on Long Island paddle. When he started out there at Nassau, he started as an assistant pro and became the head pro like back in 82 or 81. Created the men's event. His sister Bobo made him start a women's event somewhere in the early 90s. But kudos to Tim for running this event, doing a great job leading the way for Long Island paddle, not only at Nassau, but every other club. You know, back in the day, there were few paddle pros out there. And so Tim earned a living in the winter, you know, at Nassau teaching paddle on their first 2 courts. So they've expanded, obviously, but you know, he went to all the other clubs, and he was a big part in how the game grew out on Long Island and became such a force. So kudos to Tim and all his accomplishments, and the longest running 2 tournaments in our sport, Long Island event and Short Hills Nationals, Short Hills Invitational, besides our national championship. All right, Lauren, back to the action.
15-30.
See right there, Lalic. I thought if she had driven that ball through the middle, show over. I was surprised.
15, 40.
And Michelle usually makes that volley. You know, I think that's the, we'll call it the Lalic effect. You know, she ended up like swinging on that volley versus just absorbing it, going straight ahead. We know we volley straight ahead, keep the movement simple. You're going to make more.
Elliott and Lalic.
But-
and Lalic lead the first set 5-1.
When you're trying to avoid Waldo over there in the ad court, it causes lots of errors in the other team's games, for sure.
15.
Yes, definitely.
You know, it's the psychological effect of her potential weapons over there.
So she missed the first serve.
And
Yeah,
we
you
see
see
Lalic.
Lalic really, yes, she likes to stay back on her serve. I mean, almost all the time. She's
Yeah,
happy waiting for a drive to come in on her own terms.
Yep, one of the only players in the game, actually, who does that. And Lauren, in the Philadelphia, the event at Aronimink Golf Club, you know, I watched a couple of Lalic's matches, and like what she could do from the baseline staying back, she just carved players up. They didn't know what to do. Do they come up? Do they stay back? It was she put on a clinic on playing this sport in a totally different way.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, the philosophy in this game has always been, if your opponents are back, you come up. The problem is, and we've seen it now obviously with Lalic, but also, you know, the way Hanish and Zabori play that I formation is, if you come in and get caught in transition against one of these big drives, it's not such an easy volley you're contending with. You're not in control. Lalic closed tight on that net.
Lauren, we saw Michelle Newby's game develop last season. She's still, you know, it's in development, as is Sedovich's game. Sedovich, I got to know her really well up at Glens Falls Country Club this fall when we did a paddle camp with Drew Broderick, and she was delightful on the court. All the members loved having her, and you know, she's become really mature very quickly. Early in the season, you could see she'd kind of play and wasn't quite sure of what the concept was, but you know, to be under Drew's tutelage and get some real good insights from local pros, you know, you can see she's starting to put it together, and she looks really rock solid out here. And just, you know, she and Michelle haven't played that much together. They played a couple tournaments and have had some good success together. But they kind of, you don't really feel like they have a plan here in this match. They're purely reacting to everything Elliott and Lalic are doing right now. Do you agree?
I agree. I mean, they may have had a plan, but you know, when you're being outplayed, it's hard to keep your plan when you're just trying to survive.
40, 30.
I mean, I'm sure their plan is what we said. I'm sure their plan was to, you know, keep them off the net with deep lobs, and you know, it's easy to say until you start getting barraged.
Great lob up the line using the screens out of that ad court for Sedovich.
Oh, that was a tricky inside-out roller short backhand. I love it.
So, Lauren, we'll be right back. Yeah, that's the first set. We'll be right back in just a moment after, right here on the APTA YouTube channel, with live streaming by ProFlight and match stats provided by Court Director.
At Corient, wealth management begins and ends with you. We believe the more personal the solution, the more powerful the result. We treat your goals as our own. We never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
Welcome back to the APTA Tour. I'm Patty Hogan along with the one and only Lauren Mandel at Huntington Country Club with the women's final of the Long Island Invitational Duane Hayden event. We saw our #1 seeded team, Macy Elliott and Lisa Lalic, win that first set 6-1 over Michelle Ncube and Sonia Sedovich. And Lauren, it was one of those things that it wasn't a surprise to how that match played out. And, you know, Elliott and Lalic just overwhelming favorites in this final match. And you can see why.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to ask you a question, but I also want to ask you what you think of Sedovich's sidearm serve. I think it's quite good. But what do you think, Patty? What do you think Ncube and Sedovich can do here? Well, that was a good start to change the way this match is going, because so far it's been one-way traffic.
Okay. So when you said, you know, at the beginning of the match, that did they have a game plan? But it's hard to execute a game plan. And I think platform tennis, the execution of the game plan and slowing down play and finding a tempo that you can do is dependent upon screenplay. And I feel like with Ncube at this point, more so a little bit out of that deuce court versus Sedovich out of that at court, needs to let the powerful hard hit overhead go into the screens versus trying to react and block that ball. Because there's no way you can control your lobs when someone's firing an overhead with a ton of pace at you. And that's the benefit of screenplay. It slows down the shots. And I always feel like that's where the development as someone who's a great high-level tennis player coming into platform tennis, you know, you got to learn the positioning, the nuances of the game, but you got to learn those screens and be able to dictate play off of them. So I'm hoping, you know, possibly that could be something they could do. Because my thing is, I don't think it always is dependent on like really deep lobbing. I think it's got to be high lobbing in the women's game. And we know even a short, really high lob coming down, you know, that ball's dropping faster, changes the overhead, you know, opportunity that the, you know, Macy and Lisa would have to hit. So that height could derail some of their power slightly. So maybe that, and I think better shifting as a team. They've got to play tighter to each other at the net.
One game to love. Elliott and Lalic won the first set. 2 games to 1.
But you saw that miss right there from Sedovich on that low ball. It's, you know, when I came into the game, I always learned, just you got to keep one more point in play, And I think you have to know when you're truly on the defensive. And Sophia was on the defensive right there in that situation. And that's where open up your paddle face and just lift that ball up, flick it up in the air and buy your team time. Extend points. You know, they've got to get to where they're on the pure defensive in that moment and figure out how to put one more ball back and then let the play start to repeat itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think they're getting frustrated by when they play a long point and they think they get the offense. They're really just playing into Elliott and Lalic's hands. And I think that's got to be quite frustrating for them.
Really good drive there from
Ncube
out of the deuce court. And that's where I'll say, you know, that's what I expected to happen, where Elliott would look to cut off stuff because she knows Lalic is staying back deep on the baseline. And I think, you know, she could even position herself over a little bit, really looking to be more aggressive in those situations. And then right there
was a pounded.
Right. And that's something where, you know, Elliott, with knowing Lalic is staying back, trying the Australian position and taking away the cross court, but you've got to take it away and stand closer to the net to take away that cross court drive. She just gave Sedovich a little too much room, and that was great for Sedovich just to overjuice that ball right at her. So that's Lalic serving in the pink vest. Macy Elliott at the net with her back to us. That's Ncube about to lob out of that deuce court, and Sedovich is over there in the ad court.
Another good drive.
You know, it's interesting, Lauren. You can see Ncube in particular has hit some penetrating drives against these guys, and they've just let the ball go through every time. And she's hitting it so purely, they can just go back, play it off the net, exactly how, you know, go into transitions. They're never like, you don't see them hitting off-balance volleys. If a ball's kind of 3 feet from them, they just let that ball go through.
And you saw what happened there on that break point was they, ooh, ouch. Neither of them went for the overhead. You know, both their forehand overheads in the middle, and they looked at each other. So they're going to have to tighten that up about who's taking those overheads because, you know, they had a good shot at making it 1-all, and now they're looking at a game point.
Yep, and it's those little things, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, they've got to clean up positioning at the net, shifting together, and then, you know, anticipating in advance based on where the ball is on the baseline team, who automatically is going to be able to cover the overhead. And that's the benefit you get of a lefty-righty team.
That's where you just can't find a place that Lalic isn't.
Right, but that's where Sedovich, I think, she's got to resist the drive at that point, even though she has it, and throw it up the line, just to about the service line, and just back Lalic up a little bit.
Yeah, she thinks she's getting it by her, but she's not.
So Elliott, Lalic up 2-0. You know, following the Long Island event, we've got a lot of paddle going on. We've got the Denver, the throwdown happening today as well. We're going to be live streaming all day today and through tomorrow morning with the finals of the men's event here from Long Island. And the tour will resume. So the tour takes a break for the holidays, and then the tour will resume right out of Rolling Hills Country Club, an event started last season by Macy Elliott. Lauren, what else do we have on the upcoming APTA tour? What do we have to look forward to in January?
We have the Steel City Classic in Pittsburgh the week after the Fairfield Open. And we have the Boston Open.
At the Grand Prix, the third Grand Prix of the year?
The third Grand Prix of the season. And what else, Patty?
Oh, well, I mean, January is action-packed. And, you know, it's a unique time of the season because we have 2 Grand Prix within 2 weeks of each other with the Short Hills Invitational following that. So, you know, a lot's up in the air with both the men's and women's game, a lot of switching partners, kind of an exciting time of year. And then with 2 Grand Prix where points are double, a lot of money on the line, it's going to be an exciting time for our sport. You know, the thing is, you can see Ncube and Sedovich, you know, they're trying to get everything over to Macy. They know she's never gonna miss. And then, you know, Macy's goal is bring me another, because I'm just gonna set up Lisa. And Lisa's gonna be over there lurking. And Lalic is so good that, you know, she can go without hitting a ground stroke, you know, for a couple, you know, like 30 shots or something away from her, and she gets the one opportunity and she pounces like no other.
That is true. And that point has got to be so frustrating for Ncube and Sedovich. They hung in there, they hit a bunch of good volleys, and they just got nowhere.
Oh my gosh, how much relief do you think Ncube and Sedovich feel right now? I mean, just, okay, we're in a game here. I know, you know, we're down 30-40, but we just played a longer point, and it worked out well for us. You can see the uncertainty about whether they're switching and when they're switching, like you pointed out earlier. And then because of that hesitation, then they screw up the volley.
Right, because they're off balance, right? It just takes less than a second of indecision, and you're not in the right place at the right time, and that's gotten them a few times, and that's a few times too many when you're playing this team.
Right. You know, I think when that lefty-righty is trying to pull off the switch, they've got to, you know, blast the ball into the screen or get the ball deep enough so they have time to just flow back and forth and switch positions.
Right,
but
you can't do it on that floater overhead because they're going to drive the ball behind you while you're switching.
Right, right. Okay, so Elliott, Lalic, I mean, you know, they're firing on all cylinders here, up 6-1, 3-0 in the second set. I'm Patty Hogan with Lauren Mandel calling the action. But, you know, I love the future for Ncube, Sedovich, what I'm seeing out here. You know, this is just, they're up against one of the game's best teams, and I just want them to feel like when they come out of this match that they feel like they did a couple of things that were good, but most importantly, they probably will figure out 16 things about the game in this match that will instantly propel their trajectory upward for the rest of the season for them.
Absolutely, they're going to learn how, you know, they've gotten to a certain point in their game, which has gotten them all the way to the finals of this tournament. So congratulations to them on that. But they are going to look at this match and say, you know, points that we were winning earlier in the tournament, we weren't winning, and we have to be able to work on those things that'll allow us to, you know, stay in the points with the big teams.
Lauren, who did Ncube and Sedovich beat to get to the finals here? Do you have do you have that information in front of you?
Yeah, they beat Aruda and Corcoran, who took out the #2 seeds, Morgan and Maturka. So that was a good win for them there. And then in the semis, they beat Jade Curtis and Vanessa Petrini, who were very, very tough players in 2 close sets. One was a tiebreaker. So those are 2 quality wins, you know? I mean, those are they were not slated to, they were not the favorites to get to the finals here.
So a break of serve on Elliott. Elliott was broken once in the first set. And, you know, big sense of relief that they get on the scoreboard here, Ncube and Sedovich. And Elliott, we call her, I call her like, she's a tinkerer. She's always going to be working on stuff, and she's up, you know, 6-1, 3-0. She's working on serving, and you see she went for it, had some faults. But that's kind of what she does, and if, you know, the match were far closer, the experimenting would be over. You know, the experimentation can, you know, high-level players have to experiment as their, you know, as their maturity on court advances, and, you know, you gotta grow with your confidence of being able to execute in pressure types of situations on the stream, finals of an event like Long Island here, and, you know, it's just in a season, we're going to be watching both of these players, Lauren, playing in another final and having it be ultra competitive. I have no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, as to what you were saying about tinkering, like, you can work on something in practice till you're blue in the face, but until you do it in a match, it's just a totally different thing to execute it in a match. Okay. And they got to feel good now, Ncube and Sedovich. They're right in the second set here. A few errors from Elliott and Lalic, who had been pretty flawless up until the last couple games.
Sure, and yesterday when Elliott and Lalic, they got through, they beat O'Sullivan and Sarge in their semifinal 0-4. And you know, a lot of what these top players will do is they, you know, once they know the matches, they feel like they're in control of it, which they definitely are still, that's when they'll kind of, the tinkering begins. So, you know, could they win this match 1-1? They probably could. But, you know, they also are working on things, and when you're the team who's crushing the other team, you know, like there's no need to go and try to totally do the crush if you can. You're benefiting your team long term by, you know, working out the kinks in little situations. And Lalic and, you know, Elliott, they're a new team together, Lauren, right? How many tournaments have they played?
This is their third.
This is their third, and what are their results? You mentioned the Aeronomic final, which they got the win in.
Yeah, they were down 3-love, and they won the Aeronomic final, and they lost in the semis of Baltimore to Lopez and Page in straight sets, where they definitely had their chances in the second set, but that was really their first big outing together.
Yep. And that's the thing, you know, when they lost to Lopez and Page, it wasn't surprising. It was a new pairing, and they had to work out stuff. And Lopez and Page, you know, they've gotten themselves into the upper echelon that you referred to, like the top 3 teams on the women's side. And, you know, there's definitely like a leveling out in the game. And then now with, you know, Burst out of the game this season and Lalic in, it looks like Elliott, Lalic are right there in the top 3, undoubtedly, just like Elliott and Lynn Burris were. So kudos to, you know, Missy Elliott, who I think, you know, in her tinkering, she has an incredible skill of being able to play with anybody, and she doesn't care who her partner is. She's just a fierce competitor, and she gets out here and instantly, you know, you go, oh boy. Lalic and Elliott.
That being said, not that easy to replace Lynn Burris with someone who looks, you know, almost as good. I mean, that's a pretty impressive for both Elliott and Lalic. So.
Yep.
Game, Lalic. Elliott and Lalic see the second set, 4 games to 2.
I like this, Sedovich and Ncube, you know, just some positive body language with each other. They're both trying as hard as they can. And, you know, just get together here. Right now, first point, play super solid here. And again, the strategy from Ncube and Sedovich is, you know, play a disproportionate number of shots over to Elliott, and then if they have an opportunity to get that ball into the corner of that at court against Lalic, I think they're going to try, but they really have had few opportunities, and that's because of Macy Elliott's play out of that deuce court. The girl doesn't miss, and she puts the lobs in spots where, like, that wasn't the greatest, highest lob, the deepest lob, but it just forced an off-balance response on the overhead. You know, she knows how to take away time from her opponents, making them hit the ball a little before they're quite ready to hit that shot, to execute to make it. Lauren, you had talked to, I cut you off earlier. You were going to talk about Sedovich's sidearm serve, which she loves. She's worked hard on that. I've also seen her hit a traditional overhand serve. She can do that beautifully, but her confidence is with the sidearm right now.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, a lot of people were playing with that sidearm serve in the men, mostly in the men's, but also in the women's, and now we see very little of it. But she seems to have it, you know, in order to do it effectively, you have to keep it low. And she seems to have a nice rhythm with it. It keeps it nice and low.
Going pretty fast. I think we might be able to, if this continues at this pace, probably get some bonus coverage from some action from men's round of 32s going on here at Huntington Country Club under the great direction of the one and only Lisa Rudloff. Lauren, I know that we'll be on air throughout the day, some upcoming men's play, but I think at the conclusion of this, we'll keep the stream going and we'll get some bonus coverage. know, Nube hitting the ball like that, flat, is going to do nothing to break down Macy Elliott. Nothing. So she's going to have to do more hitting her overheads.
Elliott and Lalic lead the second set, 5 games to 2.
But you see what happens when Sedovich tried to hit an aggressive roller and she was just playing right into Macy Elliott's hands, right? I mean, that roller's either got to be right at the person so they can't get out of the way fast enough, or it has to be, you know, rolled so slowly into the screens that it doesn't go to 2 screens. That one, Macy Elliott just stepped aside, and it was an aggressive shot for her to take it off the screen.
Yeah. You know, it seems like because the play's coming from the deuce corner from where Macy Elliott is positioned, it's Nube, who is on that diagonal with the lefty overhead, is getting a lot of opportunities. And she's really going with the, like, a little flat type of push where she's got, even if she were to hit rollers or slice or slash,
yeah.
And that's why, you know, player development, you have to have the overhead variety. That's the only way you're going to break down baseline teams of this caliber. And that's why I always say, you know, the game has always come down to volleying, but it comes down to that overhead potential with all of these women in the game, I think. And that's where you just see Nube's, you know, that's going to be part of her development, variety on the overheads, and for Sedovich as well. So we're at 5-2 seconds. Yeah, 5-2 second set. Sorry, Lauren.
No, I think it's a really good point. I think that, you know, the top women now, like to be one of the top women, you have to be able to hit a hard roller or a soft roller, all different kinds of spin overheads. You can't just rely, you know, on one type of overhead, because you have to find a way to keep these really good baseline players off balance.
Right. Lucking out here, beautiful day on Long Island, cloud cover. We got some rain drizzle overnight. It's about 34 degrees out here. It is an ideal paddle day at Huntington Country Club. I love that play from that return to serve. You see how low Lalic got? I always think when someone's that low at the net, you got to test them and see if they can come up and control that shot, and that time Lalic didn't, so good play from Nube. Right there, Sedovich stole Nube's overhead. The ball's coming out of that deuce corner from Elliott, and, you know, again, they passed up that opportunity to get themselves controlling the overheads, and once you start hitting the ball back and forth against a team as good as Elliott and Lalic, you are dead in the water. So right here, this is good. Just let Nube handle this, obviously. That wasn't in between. I like this, and that's the ball that, you know, she's hit 2 flat balls. She's got to do a little something different with that. These balls are getting short, so Elliott's just going to, you know, continue. You can see she's not overjuicing anything, but just hitting no 2 balls in the same spot. Love that variety on baseline shots. Uh-oh.
Right? Chance to
Lalic,
make it 5-3.
Right. Lalic missed.
Yeah. She's missed a couple ground strokes. We hadn't seen that at all.
Like I said, you know, a little bit of a... Elliott tinkers, she's still tinkering on her serve, but this is exactly the match to tinker on it with. But a match, you know, set a game point against right here. And, you know, I'm pulling for Sedovich and Nube to get it, because I want them just to feel some of the, you know, I want them to feel the potential that we can see in them. I want it to play out quickly for them. Because the more, you know, the confidence that they can take away, you know, I want them to take some confidence away from this match. You know, it's a great achievement for them to make a final of an APTA Tour event, and they've done some good things here, just not enough.
No, they have. I mean, they've Elliott and Lalic have really had to play. Like, I mean, you see Elliott and Lalic play some matches where you're like, you want to cover your eyes for the other team. This is not that. I mean, they're right in there. They just have to tighten up their positioning and you know, figure out a few different overheads. But they look good.
A lot of talent.
Boy, when Lalic gets that short ball, it's scary. Have her coming at you like that.
See again, you see Elliott moving her ball. She went to Ncube's backhand, then put 2 balls in the middle. I love that middle for when you're playing against a lefty-righty combination because, you know, there's a tendency to get someone to flip their paddle at the last moment, maybe forcing an error.
But Ncube was solid and got the point. And
Yep.
game point again for Ncube and Sedovich.
You know, I'd like Sedovich when the ball does go over to Lalic and she knows she's, you know, going to pummel the ball, a lot of drives coming. I would like Sedovich to close in a little bit more, actually, and get on top of the net, because when have we ever said, and there's Lalic winning the point with a lob? Never.
Yes! Hey, too bad, Sedovich. Elliott and Lalic lead the second set 5-3.
All right, 5-3, second set.
Yeah, and Ncube, this is what we said from the beginning, right? I mean, Ncube and Sedovich have to be able to handle enough of the drives and enough of the, you know, sort of almost blitzes from Elliott and Lalic to stay in the point, and they did that game beautifully. Their volleying's gotten much more solid.
Yep, and I just think, you know, there's when the ball's over to that ad court corner, there's a slight stagger with 2 righties, but again, whoops, you know, great drive, casual first volley there, forehand, couldn't control it, ball went long. So that's where I want a backhand, more backhand volleys in that situation against Lalic, because you just have no time to flip your paddle. And boom, it goes so fast, Lauren. Just when it was like, all right, they just had a great, you know, break a serve game, and 2 quick errors here. So smart play for Sedovich is to stay back and throw a Lalic on Lalic.
15-40.
Little miscommunication in that corner right there. Sedovich wasn't aware that Ncube was coming over behind her to try to throw up a lob off that back screen. I like the anticipation, just not the communication. And 2 championship points here for Elliott and Lalic.
That's the way to take care of one of them.
That is great hands from Ncube up there. And again, they're discussing, is she going to stay back or come in? I think the disadvantage of that sidearm serve is getting yourself in a really good position for that first volley, so she wisely stayed back on Lalic. And you know, Lalic, right, and Lalic doesn't always follow that ball in when the player's back. That time she did and made a volley error.
She just sort of mistimed that.
But it happened as a result of the prior ball where Lalic lobs the ball. Either Sedovich or Ncube could have hit it. Ncube hit it, put it over to Macy in that deuce board, and Sedovich wasn't quite ready for that moment.
Set and match. Elliott, Lalic.
Thank you.
Lauren, I'm going to give you 15 seconds for our summary of this match.
Thank you.
Well, Elliott and Lalic were the huge favorites coming in, and we saw why. They just did everything. You can look at the summary, the set 2 summary here. Obviously, it's well in Elliott and Lalic's favor, but Ncube and Sedovich, they did a good job in the second set. They made the points longer. They made Elliott and Lalic make more errors off of drives due to better positioning at the net. And but at the end of the day, Elliott and Lalic were just too strong.
Yeah, Lauren, kudos to Elliott and Lalic for their second win of the year on the APTA Tour. So we're going to wrap it up, actually, from this match. But stay tuned, because we'll have some bonus coverage. And I think, Lauren, you'll be on the next match. I think is at 11 o'clock. Stay tuned.
11 o'clock.
the Duane Hayden Invitational Men's APTA Tour play right here on the APTA YouTube channel. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you, Lauren.
At Corient, wealth management begins and ends with you. We believe the more personal the solution, the more powerful the result. We treat your goals as our own. We never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
We're all tied up, and this first set is dead even.
Unbelievable combination.
Beautifully done.
What a great spot.